Good morning. It's Thursday, October 2nd, 2014. This is Tech Talk Today, episode 69. My name is Chris, and we have a huge show today. There's been some big stuff. The embargoes have been released, and we're going to talk about it. So to help me go through all of it is our excellent and well-staffed Mumble team. Time-appropriate greetings, Mumble Room.
Good afternoon.
Time-appropriate greetings, everybody. Okay, let's start with...
Hey!
Hey, Eric. Eric on the road, I might add.
On the road.
Where are you right now, Eric? Are you in a hotel room?
I am in a hotel room in beautiful Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Oh, and let's see. I'm just listening through the headphones, getting a sense of the ambience. I'm going to guess there's a bed and a couch in there. Oh, I see a mirror through my ears. I'm like Daredevil over here, Eric. I'm just mapping out your room as you talk.
Where are you?
It's nice. It's nice. It's not bad.
Where's the camera?
Oh, they didn't put anything in the mini fridge? That sucks. I hate it when that happens. That's too bad.
It's like you know this place.
All right, let's talk about something else I knew was coming. This major announcement about a big Zen vulnerability that's taken down a ton of public infrastructure, quote-unquote, cloud services. Rackspace joined Amazon in patching and rebooting a lot of their servers. So about a quarter of Rackspace's 200,000 plus customers were impacted by this Zen hypervisor flaw. Now, if you're not familiar with Zen, think of it as sort of like VMware. It is a low-level virtualizer that comes with Linux that is used in a ton of cloud hosting providers because you load in a base Linux and you can spin up a ton of VMs on top of it. It's great technology. Like Amazon Web Services, Rackspace was forced to reboot some of its servers to patch them for a security flaw, and they had to do this before the security flaw went public because the idea is and this is what Rackspace's CEO has said, is once the vulnerability goes public, it's like ringing the dinner bell for hackers. So they didn't want their customers to be attacked. So what's interesting is these big businesses get the heads up, even for an open source flaw like this, so that way they can patch, and then us general peebs get to find out about it. The cloud provider had to patch an untold number of servers. They're not releasing that over the weekend and reboot them, which we kind of speculated in Linux Action Show that was happening. According to the CEO and president, Taylor Rhodes, the issue was further complicated by a tight deadline when the vulnerability was first discovered early last week, and a patch wasn't even worked out until late in September, on September 26th. AWS started sending out letters to its customers September 24th, informing them that there was indeed an issue, but it was interesting because a lot of people assumed the issue had to deal with the shell shock vulnerability. Amazon then had to release a statement saying it was not due to the bash bug and that it was an unrelated flaw that was critical. Ars Technica digs in a little bit to this big flaw that's affecting a lot of Linux systems, saying it was introduced after version 4.1 in Zen. It's in the HVM code that emulates Intel's APIC controller. While the emulation restricts the ability of virtual machines to write to the memory reserved specifically for its own emulated controller, a program running within the Zen virtual machine could use that interface to read information outside of the space. Kind of crazy. So I guess in other words, an evil virtual machine could essentially read over the shoulder of another virtual machine running on the same server, bypassing security isolation. Obviously a huge deal for companies like Rackspace and Amazon that have a lot of shared system. The official Zen security vulnerability is now posted as XSA 108, and we'll have a link to that in the show notes if you run a Zen shop. This is one of these interesting things that seems to be happening in open source, and I don't know if it's got to be a combination of deployment scale, and also I got to believe there's just more people looking at this stuff now than there ever has been before, and maybe that's a post-Snowden thing, maybe that's just the security climate that we're in now. I don't know if anybody in the Mumble Room running these Zen servers, anybody heard about this vulnerability before today?
I heard about this vulnerability, I think, late last week when someone tweeted about it. I think it was Applebomb, actually.
Yeah.
But it hadn't actually been posted on the site yet, but it was an item in the table. But it's quite interesting to find out what it is now.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting because, the rumor started late last week, and then it sort of, but it was like, okay, we can't talk about it. And I always think of, like, my former job as a contractor for IT, and I think, boy, I would be scrambling today. And I wish I could I wish I could be in the cool kid club where I get a heads up and I get the patch before everybody else. But I guess you have to be of a certain size and importance. But I think about all of the, mid-level sysadmins out there who just got a really crazy Thursday afternoon. Because if you have these servers publicly facing, the main concern would be somebody could compromise a virtual machine. And then once they're on that virtual machine, they could read the contents of the memory from the other machines. That's pretty significant if you think about it. It's not like Heartbleed bad, but it's bad.
I wonder, but I don't think it would probably work. But could you have used the shell shock bug with this bug?
Right, in combination. It's
in
a good
combination
question.
to get access.
Maybe in theory, yes. I would say, who knows the specific case? You'd probably have to try it out. But any good security researcher or penetration tester or hacker is going to use a multitude of exploits. It's not about when you compromise a system, you don't go generally for the end goal immediately. If it's a system of value, it's generally somewhat protected. So you do essentially island hopping. You start somewhere low-hanging fruit, and you slowly and surely escalate up from there. You try to take the most efficient path possible because the less time it takes you to escalate, the less likelihood you're going to get caught, the less logging is going to happen. But the idea would be is you would use maybe something like shell shock to get a shell on the machine. Then you would use something like this vulnerability in Zen to read the contents of another machine. Ergo, you might want to hack a completely different system on that Zen hypervisor server, but you would compromise maybe like the Nagios machine that has really lax firewall rules, so everything can report to that. So that's your low-hanging fruit that nobody really thinks is all that important. You compromise that, but guess what? Now that has a access allowed rule to get out to the internet, so you can send out the data you found, and now you can use this Zen hypervisor vulnerability to read the contents of maybe the database server or the web server that has the user credentials that you actually want. So it's a stepping process, and that's why these vulnerabilities on the face are sometimes not that bad, but in combination with other vulnerabilities that we do know about or don't know about, they can really lead to a major compromise. And you can see why Rackspace and Amazon, who are all about that uptime, no downtime, they don't want to see this, but they have to roll out these patches as fast as possible. I can imagine they were scrambling over the weekend. I think it's a fascinating situation. Odyssey, you think this could be a good thing? Oh, I think you're muted over there, Odyssey. Sorry about that. I see your mic turned on. I'm not trying to freak you out because, I mean, this isn't necessarily like, oh, it's not the sky is not falling here. This is just something, this is why these are big deals and they have to be taken care of. All right, Odyssey, is your mic back?
Yeah, I just forgot to flip the switch.
No problem.
Okay. Yeah, it's actually my good thing because it actually puts, like you said, puts more eyes on the Linux spy, and actually puts a test about Linux being invulnerable and whatnot.
Right.
So if you put more eyes on it, it gets some more bugs fixed,
right.
And that's about it.
Here's the other reason why I think big picture these shell shocks and heartbleeds and now the Zen vulnerability. The reason why I think they're going to lead to good stuff is open source in Linux is now at the point where there's no going back. It's a must-have, fundamental, general platform technology. So it's not like we're going to go look for the Windows alternative at this point. That battle's settled. What it could go ahead.
I think Odyssey's absolutely right. We're seeing more popularity in open source now than ever before.
Makes it a bigger deal.
Makes it a big deal. We're also seeing, so that makes it a big deal, but it also shows how many eyes are actually on the code and finding these exploits as we go.
And here's the other thing I hope, because we are all dependent on what has now become fundamental core technology to use the internet, and we all know how much commerce and everything runs on top of that. So this is critical technology. What I hope this pushes forward is the dialogue that we have got to get Linux at a point where updating is no big deal at all, because it is going to become fundamentally important to these businesses' operation and to consumer protection that these machines are updated as fast as possible. And that's why I don't know if rolling is the future, but isolation, containerization, there's got to be some combination that enterprises can be comfortable with where they can day of roll out a patch and day of roll back if they have to with minimal consequences. Because right now, and I'm specifically looking at you, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, it is way too complicated and way too risky to update these systems when you have websites that generate millions of dollars and lose. Like when Amazon goes down, I read a stat once that's something like $1 million a minute. I don't know if it's true or not, but when they're down, they claim it's $1 million a minute in lost revenue. So when you have to go to the boss and say, we have yet another vulnerability we have to patch, and yes, we have to reboot everything, and yes, there's a possibility that something might not come back just right because these infrastructures are a mess, you've got to remove all of that. And that will be the number one enabling technology. If we can get that solved under Linux, Huge for going forward in the cloud, because this is not going to stop. Because here's, at the end of the day, even as we get more audits and more eyes on the code, it's still more human beings generating more future code, and it's just going to be as flawed as the existing code because human beings are flawed. And until the computers take over and they're making their own programming code and we're all going to get destroyed by our robot overlords, we've got to make this more easy to update. Because I have been in enterprises, and I know a lot of you out there who are system administrators that are listening to this, you have watched as systems sit for years without a patch because they're too important to patch, which is ridiculous reasoning, but it is the logical fallacy that enterprises get locked into. And so vulnerabilities like this have life for years. And we have watched the long tail of this on TechSnaps for the whole run of the show, where vulnerabilities that are patched months and months and months and months and months in the past are not deployed to systems, and that's how they get compromised. The Target breach, the massive, huge, gigantic Target breach, was because they were not properly patching their systems, among other problems. It is a huge issue.
But I think Canonical is actually one step ahead. When Bash happened, I went to check my microserver and the security update had already been installed. I didn't know it'd been installed.
Yeah,
but that's not the problem.
Yeah, it's not
really the problem.
Right.
The problem is that
you were saying the update was
corporations are fearful of updating because they are scared to death that it might break something.
The code's there. The operating system vendors are delivering patches within reasonable time windows, almost all across the board now. If you have a supported operating system, the code from the vendor, be it Canonical or Microsoft or Apple or Debian, is getting delivered within reasonable time, sometimes incredible time frames when it's like the Bash bug. But the issue is,
like hours.
They're not getting deployed. That's the problem. And yeah, like us enthusiasts that have a couple of computers, we're all on it, right? But when you start having 50, 100, 200 machines, sometimes they're all managed under one umbrella management suite, and you have a change control process. Like before I could install a new printer driver, I had to go bring it to the change control committee, which met on Thursdays at 2 o'clock. So if I wanted to change a driver on Monday to resolve a printer problem on the central print server, I had to wait till Thursday at 2 o'clock to get approval, and I had to justify to the committee why I wanted to update this driver.
That's messed up.
But that's how it is in the corporate world, and it's because of this fear that they get locked into. And anyways, that's my soapbox. And every time a big vulnerability comes up like this, it makes me think about it. And so when you guys hear me going on about how important rolling is, it's not that I think rolling is going to solve this problem, but I think it is a step in the right direction to getting to a system where code is much more fluid, but yet somehow we also need to protect ourselves from the downsides of that. Anyways, more information about this Zen vulnerability. Obviously, you can tell it's something I have an interest in because of my past, but I'm sure not all of you do, so we'll move on. This next one just creeps me the hell out. The EFF is warning us about security software that's been distributed by cops, hospitals, family help centers.
What?
Turns out, and it's designed under the guise of find out if your children are looking at porn online. Well, probably not too surprising to discover it's essentially spyware, and it's being bought at tens of thousands of dollars in taxpayer dollars and then distributed out to families for free, and it's taking screenshots of their machine, it's logging all of the keystrokes for everyone, including usernames, passwords, credit cards. So I'll give you the background because I hadn't really heard about this until this story. The software is called ComputerCop. So various schools, libraries, etc., all hand out this security software called ComputerCop. It's been going on for years. And the idea is you can even get them at attorneys' offices. Like if you go in for like family, like if you're getting a divorce, they have it there. Like, so, oh, well, you're probably a parent. Take this home. I mean, it's sick. It's everywhere. And one of the main features of ComputerCop is a keylogger, among a bunch of other stuff that it does.
Oh, wow.
Keylogger, it records all of the clicks, including credit card information for all users on the computer. Doesn't matter if it's a kid's account, the administrator account, every single account. And here's the best part. Now, this is an additional package, but it's a pretty popular package. It includes something called Key Alert, not installed by default, but it's one of the checkboxes when you're installing. Key Alert not only logs everything typed on Windows computers, and on Macs, it logs everything typed but protects it with a password, a default password that comes with the program. It also can be configured to send email alerts on certain keywords. These emails, as you might have guessed, are all sent unencrypted. And on the Windows box, all of the logging is done in a plain text password. Also an option on the Mac, but on the Mac by default, the file's protected with a password. That password is the default for all installations of ComputerCop, so it's not that hard to get. And it's just right there. Everything ever entered in the computer. It's pretty subversive. I think about it like this, you guys, and you have to understand. When there is a crime that is involved where a computer is seized, and it could be anything where they need to look at your web search history to kind of figure out if you've been researching like how to bury a body or how to evade taxes, or if you've been caught with some sort of weird porn, they'll see if you've been looking. Anything like that, they will seize the contents of your computer and they image it. They image it so that way they have a forensic copy of your machine. And anything that is on that machine, they have in a full image forever. And if you have if this is being logged, and if they're giving out tens and thousands of copies of this, and then they're seizing people's computers, they essentially have everything that's ever been done, every single keystroke on that computer ever in plain text that they would have access to. Or if somebody hacks your computer and gets access to your computer, or if somebody sits down at your machine, maybe you have a laptop, and they get access to this file, they would get every username and password you've ever logged in. And these parents think they're doing it to protect their children. They think they're protecting them from porn, and they're getting alerts if their children look at porn.
This has got way into the illegal thing.
Yeah, here's an example. So looking at San Diego, this is just looking at just San Diego in California. They bought 5,000 copies last year. Oh, I'm sorry, in the past 2 years they bought 5,000 copies. $25,000 of taxpayer dollars for this software. And then they just hand it out for free, telling everybody they're doing them a favor. So the EFF is trying to raise awareness about ComputerCop. And they're trying to get people to I have a link in the show notes. They're trying to get people aware of it because people do not know that essentially this is spyware. Screenshots, keylogs, you name it. You do something. And they also analyze the algorithm it uses to monitor you, and it's shit bad. It's like false positives constantly. You're doing stuff. It's taking screenshots of it. It thinks it's bad. It's horrible. They said the algorithm basically doesn't work at all. It's just essentially a whole collection. It's horrible. So, it's just creepy too, right?
I understand people taking this home out of ignorance, but I don't understand. What really grinds my gears is the stupidity of the people who are handing it out. I'm sure like the vast majority. You do have to wonder though. At some point, somewhere in the chain, did somebody look at this and go, "Well, this is going to be great if we ever need to seize somebody's computer." Yeah, there's a little bit of bacon to be fried there, too.
I still can't believe they bought this. I just went to the website of software, and it looks horrible.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, the UI is just the worst. Yeah, you should Google ComputerCop. It's pretty bad. I know, and it's like the worst of everything. It's creepy overreaching by the state. It's bad software design, it's horrible security with tons of implications, and it's all done under the guise of protecting the children. Like, could that push any more of my buttons?
Oh yeah, no joke. Yeah. No joke. That's why I'm over here. I'm face palming.
Yeah, right.
You have a 1990s website.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It is. I'm going to bring it up right now. ComputerCop. I bet they're getting a lot of traffic today too.
Oh yeah.
You see, the thing is, they never have to market directly to consumers. They've marketing to law enforcements and hospitals and things like that. And boy, this is the worst site ever. Oh, and look, they've been covered on TV, so they must be legit, right? It's pretty bad. Let's see how much it is. Oh, look at that. The an errors occurred when I tried to buy it. The store was not found. They took the store down, huh?
Wonder why.
I wonder why that is.
Just look at the start menu on the left there in corner. Parents purchase the right version of ComputerCop for your family. I mean,
right.
It's just no.
You like the spinning law enforcement thing at the bottom too? Little flash action down there. How great is this?
How amateur can you get?
Parental monitoring, and those aren't even links at the top. Yeah.
Looks like the least effort NSA fun ever.
Oh my gosh, an embedded QuickTime video. Oh, this is great.
Wow.
Oh no, it's just flashed to look like QuickTime.
Hello, I'm John Clark, the Director of the U.S. Marshals Service.
This is horrible.
And I'd like to thank you for taking the first step to protect America's children.
Oh my goodness.
On behalf of the 3,500 Deputy U.S. Marshals who carry out the missions of the U.S. Marshals Service, I am pleased to introduce you and your family to the ComputerCop software. With internet access readily available at home, school, and the local
and
library,
how much do they pay him to do
parents
this?
must keep extra vigilant to know what's happening in their children's online lives. Predators seek potential young victims online.
You know, this is so hard because, you know, this is something parents do truly worry about. And Angela and I have talked about this. Like, you know, there's going to be a point where our kids are probably going to see some dongs online and we don't want them to see dong or something like that. And what do you do? And, of course, you know, my solution is going to be more of at a network level.
Mine too.
But I don't, you know, that is not a luxury that most average parents have. And so they're struggling to do something. They're being constantly scared about cyber, right? I mean, it's not, I don't blame the parents at all for doing this.
Blame a terrorist.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Watch out for the internet terrorists, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Pretty
Anybody
crazy stuff.
uses Nmap, they're a terrorist.
Yeah.
Cyber touches everything.
Or WGET, my friend. Or WGET. You got to watch out for that, too.
Cyber touches everything, and cyber is dangerous.
That's right. It's the new vector, man. It's the new vector.
It's the new vector.
All right, I'll tell you about the new vector. That's Patreon. That's a new vector for you to sponsor independent content like the Jupiter Broadcasting Network. Patreon.com/today is where you can go to invest in every single show the Jupiter Broadcasting Network makes. You like a couple of our shows? This is the place to go. Patreon.com/today. Your monthly pledge goes right back into the network. That's where we get funds to invest in hardware expansion, a trip, or a secret project we're working on that's going to be huge, but we have to spend that money up front. This budgetability allows us to do that, and I don't know if it's going to be possible. I hope I'm not majorly disappointed, but we're trying to get to 400 patrons by the time we take off to Ohio Linux Fest towards the end of October. Right now we're at 345. It would just be an amazing milestone for us as we're sort of flying out, spending a bunch of money, sort of like, I know we're going to be reflecting on things during the flight and all of that, and it would just be an amazing milestone to hit 400 patrons, and I think it would sort of change the tone and shape of our conversation. I think it would be an incredible milestone. Patreon.com/today. We're trying to get to 400 patrons by the end of October. We're at 345 right now. We have different pledge levels. Anything you can afford is amazing. It's great. We appreciate it. I have a default of $3 because I figure like that's a pretty good value, $3 per month to help invest in all of the shows. But there's other pledge levels down there. If you're really hardcore and really want to help keep us going, we have different levels, give you an idea of what you can do, including that swag level, which we still have some slots open. The swag is going out for a recent batch, but we'll have some more soon. Patreon.com/today, and thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for investing in the Jupiter Broadcasting Network. All right, I want to just quick, little go figure story. Adobe has pulled the Linux version of Acrobat Reader, the PDF reader, from Adobe's website. Why? Because they're a bunch of asshats. That's why. Actually, who knows? I mean, they're no stranger to screwing Linux. The company stopped releasing official builds of Flash for Linux in 2012, leaving it to Google to embed in Chrome. And, of course, they've excluded Linux users from cross-platform runtime for Air for years. But it's not all lost because Adobe is lazy. They've left the files up on their FTP server. So if you have one of those damn PDFs, like it's a government form that can only be edited in Acrobat, that's really the only reason you'd need this under Linux anymore. You can still go find it off their FTP until their lazy, underpaid sysadmins go delete it. Have at it. You know, Adobe, screw you. I don't know if there's a company I'm starting to hate more these days than Adobe. Like, wake up. Figure it out. The Windows Empire is coming to an end, and independent content creators, want a free and open platform that will stick around for the long haul, that is super fast, customizable, and modular for a media production environment. And the thing that's missing, you dummies, is Adobe's software. And if you would just release it for Linux, it would be a huge boon for the independent software or independent media creation. Because right now, we're either hitched to super expensive Macs and Final Cut, or piece of crap Windows, which is horrible for media production, and at least then we get different PCs to choose from, and none of it's ideal. And the thing is After Effects and Premiere and InDesign and obviously Photoshop, but really After Effects and Premiere are good software. And if they would just move them over to Linux, it would enable tens of thousands of people, and entire businesses could move away from Windows. It would be amazing. But instead, these dummies continue to crap on the face of Linux users and hitch their wagon to Microsoft and Apple. Well, enjoy that 5 years down the road, Adobe, and have a great time with your stupid PDF and Flash. All right, next story. No, go ahead. If you guys have anything, that's fine.
That open source, Linux in particular, is the largest growing anything right now in the tech industry.
Well, and I look at it like, I look at it from like a business of creating media, and we bring on editors, we bring on staff, and I want to make an investment in something, and I want to say, this is the Jupiter Broadcasting production pipeline. It's going to be like this for about 10 years. Yes, we're going to make improvements and modifications. We're going to evolve it, but it's based on Linux. It uses Adobe software suite, and we could make like a Jupiter Broadcasting school, and we bring somebody on. This is the course you take, and it brings you up to date on how everything works here, and this is our system. This is where we invest our money. This is what we plan on as a business. You can't make those kind of long-term plans with commercial proprietary desktops like Windows and Apple, because they are subject to the marketing whims of those companies. If at some point, say some company has a great desktop like Windows 7 and then decides that touch is the future, and they redo the desktop and they try to minimize the classic desktop and bring in a whole new modern interface and say, this is the new paradigm. I don't want that as a business doing media production, okay? I want to be able to choose the desktop environment I want with the amount of overhead that it needs. So say maybe a super minimal desktop. That way all of my computer's GPU and CPU can go into editing and not the arrow effects or the Aqua interface. But no, I don't get that choice. I don't have that choice. I'm stuck using subpar, less than ideal tools, and it drives me crazy.
I'm right there with you. I can't agree more.
Mustaches. All right, I'm getting a little. See what this bulletproof coffee did? It got me all hot and bothered. I'm all worked up. I'm all fired up about Adobe. I think Adobe's been grinding my gears lately. Just stupid after stupid after stupid, and then the fact that we get straddled with this horrible security flawed Flash that takes a ton of resources and makes my fans spin in my computer, it just drives me crazy, guys. It drives me crazy.
And it's like Flash won't die. It's like that zombie that keeps coming up.
Yeah, exactly. I'm ready for PDF to go too. Oh, and then that's the last thing. Then I'll move on. I know you guys don't care that much, but the last thing. If you are going to spend a decade cramming your crappy, proprietary document format down my mouth and feeding this BS to the entire industry and buying off companies to implement PDF support, suing others that just implement it for free, and all of this, if you're going to ram your crappy proprietary format down all of our throats for more than a decade, then at the end of that, when you have succeeded, it is now incumbent upon you to make that format accessible to everyone, because it is your fault that it has been widely adopted, and so therefore it is now your responsibility to make sure it can be used everywhere, because that's what you promised us.
PDF is open.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah, I know now. I know they've changed it over time. I realize. But you see my point. You see, if you're going to force all of us to adopt something, it's now on you. Here's the thing, though, because it's not fully open. Like there are only certain things Acrobat Reader can do, and for me, I don't need any of those things. I use, any built-in PDF reader on any desktop environment is totally fine. I never load Acrobat Reader ever. But if you're going to implement a standard that has these proprietary extensions to them that allow like only certain forms to be filled out, but you have to use the Acrobat Reader, if you're going to do that, then you have to make that available everywhere. Smartphones, desktops, everywhere. It's my opinion. Yep. And if you're not willing to take that, if you're not willing to make that commitment, you probably shouldn't be in that business.
Like Adobe's going to just collapse on itself because all of these marketing decisions they're making is just stupid, like you said, Chris.
I guess there's not really like something that would fully come in and replace PDF, and I understand like if you're just using vanilla PDF, it's really not a big deal. I mean, I know it's this like where they just tweak it, where they brace and extend, and then that is exclusive to them. That drives me crazy.
It's mostly the markup. It's mostly the markup behind the scenes, like when you go to highlight stuff and then save that to the PDF.
or the secure PDF functionality stuff. You know, if you see,
that's the proprietary stuff.
Yeah.
The rest of it's open.
All right, so moving right along, because that really was supposed to be a super quick thing. I didn't mean to get it's because like in the grand scheme of things, it's like who cares? It's not a big deal. PDF is gonna live forever, and for 98% of people, all the default viewers out there are fine and way better than Acrobat. I just thought this was so. We a couple of weeks ago, it was the iPhone release week. 10 million iPhones sold in the U.S. People speculated it might have been more if they were able to sell in China at the same time, but due to some licensing issues, Apple had to wait before they could sell in China. Pre-orders went live, though, now that they've received their license, and in just 6 hours, Apple received 2 million iPhone sales. They made 2 million sales in just 6 hours. So the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus were delayed in China as a result of the regulatory issues that Apple hadn't worked through. Samsung used that opportunity to release their brand new phone right away. So I think that sort of put pressure on Apple to work out the regulatory issues. And according to new reports coming out of China, both retailers and carriers have taken a massive 2 million reservations in just 6 hours, which makes it just a huge success. The iPhone 6 really seems to be a huge deal for Apple. 10 million last weekend, who knows how many since then, 2 million in 6 hours in China. Before the phone was officially available in China, the black market versions were going for over $1,000 each. People are paying over $1,000 for an iPhone in China.
Wow.
Yeah. Nuts. And
That's
last Mac-related story coming, really just kind of making a big stink online this morning. A new Mac botnet has been discovered, and here's what's interesting. Here's a good twist. Doesn't connect to IRC, doesn't connect to Yahoo Chat to get its instructions. Nope. This botnet reads Reddit. So beware, Mac users, new malware spreading that tries to connect to infected machines, and they links them together for future exploitation. This has been detected by Dr. Web. As detected by Dr. Web. They're the ones that found this. The malicious worm, which has been dubbed Mac.BackDoor.iWorm. Hey, they even get eyes for the worms. That's great. iWorm. It first checks whether the interfering applications are installed in the Mac. If they are, and it's all clear, it calls out to a Reddit post to find the IP address of possible servers it should connect to get further instructions. Now, here's the thing. Reddit mods are pretty good about shutting down these posts. But as you might expect, new posts are made quickly. The botnet is smart enough to scan Reddit in different places, find the new post to get new instructions. Once connected, the botnet can be literally instructed to perform almost any task the hackers want, such as redirecting browser traffic, which would be great for stealing bank credentials, or starting and stopping processes on the Mac. They estimate, Dr. Webb does, that 15,000 distinct IP addresses have been connected to the botnet already. Now, you have to keep in mind, 15,000 distinct IP addresses not directly translate to 15,000 infected Macs. It could be some Macs have IP addresses that are changing, could be some NAT that is actually even obfuscating how many Macs are there, but it does seem to be a semi-legitimate Mac worm that's using Reddit to get its instructions. This is a neat twist, isn't it?
This is actually kind of funny. It just shows that not even OS X, which has been shown as being completely virus-free and bulletproof, it's not bulletproof. It has so many vulnerabilities.
Yeah, if it can execute code, right?
Ways.
If it can execute code, it can be vulnerable.
Yeah, it's like what Matt says.
Yeah, exactly. Gogo, you had an idea that maybe we could, as a community, take this guy out?
Yeah, I was thinking, because if it was on Reddit, it's in plain text, so if we find the control server, we could DOS it.
Right, that is an interesting aspect of it, isn't it? We could publicly find out who it is. It's interesting.
It's a good idea.
I think what I would do is I would keep it. If my Mac got infected and say I worked somewhere where I had a Mac, I'd keep it. And then when the IT guys came to me and said, Mr. Fisher, we've noticed on our firewall and proxy logs that you've been browsing Reddit a lot. And I could just say, it wasn't me, dog. I must have that malware. It wasn't me. It must have been the botnet browsing Reddit. It's the perfect excuse. The perfect excuse. All right, guys.
Too bad it doesn't work for 4chan, right?
Yeah, well, give it time. There's probably going to be one fork. Yeah. So that'll bring us to the end of our week of Tech Talk Today, Monday through Thursday, jblive.tv, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. TechTalkToday.reddit.com is where you go to give feedback or give me an idea of the topics you'd like to see covered in the show and give us insights. Now, you guys know we like to end on a commercial, and I think Eric nailed it on the head. It just goes to show you, sometimes when you market yourself a certain way and then you fail to deliver on that, you'll never live it down. We all can think of a great example. Google's Don't Be Evil. Well, guess what? Every time Google does something evil, what's the first thing everybody brings up? I thought you said don't be evil. Don't be evil. Google, you're totes being evil. Well, the same thing applies to those guys over in Cupertino. If you're going to make a big deal about not getting viruses, then the day you start getting viruses, people will never let you down. So I think we'll end today sort of reflecting on a time when Apple seemed to think they were invulnerable to this kind of thing.
Hello, I'm a Mac.
And I'm a PC.
Gesundheit, you okay?
No, I'm not okay. I have that virus that's going around.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, you better stay back. This one's a doozy.
That's okay, I'll be fine.
No, do not be a hero. Last year there were 114,000 known viruses for PCs.
PCs, not Macs. So just grab this.
I think I got a crash.
Okay, if you feel like that'll help.